Hi, how you doing? Justin here again. Hopefully you've now got together your A chord, your D chord and your E chord. Unfortunately, we're about to hit the first very challenging part of learning the guitar, which is the realization that the hard part here is changing between the chords, not playing the chords. You thought that last bit was a bit tough and your fingers are sore? Yeah, okay, it is a bit, but now the really tough part is realizing you've got to change between the chords quickly. Now, one of the reasons I taught you the A chord with this kind of not the traditional fingering is because it means that we can use a thing that I call an anchor finger to change between the chords, and that's going to be your first finger. By leaving your first finger in contact with the string all the time when you're changing between the chords, kind of gives you a reference point and means changing between all the chords is loads easier. So let's go to a close-up now and let's have a close look at the way I'm going to get you to use this anchor finger to change between all of the three chords that you've learned already. Okay, here we are for a look at our D chord. Now the first thing that we're going to try changing between is the D chord and the E chord, because this really shows the anchor finger nice and clearly. So there's our regular E chord. Now in the old days, you might have gone, okay, let's change to an E chord, and you would have lifted all your fingers up and then you would have tried to put them down again and gone, oh, there's first finger, second finger, third finger, oh, there we go. And then changing back to D and you go, well, okay, where's it go? Yeah, that's how we do it. But now what I'm suggesting is that to change from D chord to E chord, there's your D, you lift off your second and third fingers, but leave your first finger down and instead slide it back one fret. And then put down your other two fingers. So it kind of already gives you a bit of guidance there as to where your second and third fingers are going to go. To change back to D, you lift them up, slide the first finger forward and put the other two back down again. Lift them off, slide it back, put it down. And what I'd recommend you do is a little exercise before we get to the next lesson, which is about how to do this really quickly. You practice just strumming your D chord and then off, slide back, two fingers down, E chord. Mute it, lift the fingers off, slide it forward, and D. And just try and get used to that idea that that first finger is guiding your change. So D to E, pretty obvious that there, two fingers off, slide back, two fingers back down, two fingers off, slide up, put them back down. Piece of cake. Now the next chord that we're going to look at is the change from D to A. Now if we go from D to A, the first fingers actually can stay in exactly the same place, only it can't quite because you end up getting a bit crammed. So what you're going for this time is D to A, you lift off the two fingers, first finger slides back just a tiny bit. It's not having to slide back a whole lot, and then you can replace those second and third fingers in their right spots for the A chord. So there's your D and there's your A. There's your D, and the first finger's just moving just a few millimeters, sliding up a little bit for the D, then those off, first finger just a touch back because remember it's got to stay in that same fret, and there you go. That's your change there using an anchor finger from D to A. And there's one more change left, of course, which is A to E. So if we look, there's our A chord. To change to E, lift off second and third fingers, slide the first finger back, put second and third fingers down in the right place. There's your E chord. Slide first finger forward a bit, put down your second and third fingers. Again, do it as an exercise. A, stop, lift off, shift, down. E, muted, lift off the fingers, first finger up, put them back down again. And just try and get used to that, practicing making that little move. Then maybe jump to D, way, back to E, and then to A, or maybe over to D. And just see if you can get used to that idea of that first finger staying down all the time. You will find that if you can get this anchor technique down properly, and it'll really work for you, and it'll speed up, probably double the speed that you can play those chord changes once you've given a little bit of practice. Remember as well not to press too hard, especially with that first finger. If you're pressing really hard all the time, your first finger is going to get really sore. You don't want that. The maximum pressure that you should put down is the amount that it takes to give you a nice clear note. There's no point in pressing harder. All you're going to do is hurt your fingers. So have a little bit of fun with these anchoring. Once you're familiar with the movement and the changes between each of the chords, you're ready to start trying to do them as fast as you possibly can in 1 minute changes.